on, guys? Welcome back to Network Chuck. We're talking about hacking today. Now, how do you become a hacker? This is something I've been asking myself a lot lately because I made that Starbucks video where I got to do some hacking, and it's a little addicting. And, I'm not a hacker. I'm not. I'll be the first to admit it. I am what you would call a script kiddie, I think is how they refer to us. And I'm very much a noob, but I want to get down into the deep weeds of how do you actually become a hacker, and I have the perfect person on the channel today. His name is Heath. He's also called the Cyber Mentor on YouTube. I'll let him talk here in a second. But basically, he started like I did. He's was a network engineer, and then just taught himself hacking. He's an ethical hacker. He does penetration testing. So I brought him on to find out, okay, how do we do this? How do we become a hacker? What are the skills we need to get? What certifications do we have to become a programmer? All these questions we're going to pretty much answer. So, Heath, I'm going to bring you on. Let me just make sure I'm on the right thing. There he is. Say hello.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'll do the guest hangout here so we're both on the screen here. So Heath, you are the Cyber Mentor. You have a YouTube channel, which you guys can check out the link below, and you basically do a bunch of pen test teaching. I said that right? Pen testing teaching.
Yep.
And you've pretty much done it all. I'll stop talking. Tell me, Heath, how can I become a hacker? I have networking knowledge, which I assume might be a good base, but also let's assume that maybe I don't know anything. How do I become a hacker? Let's assume I'm a 16-year-old in high school. I don't know what the junk I'm doing. How do I become a hacker like you?
Sure. So it definitely takes some time to become a hacker, and it takes a lot of patience. So having the networking background is really a good thing to have. You really need to know networking, and it doesn't have to be like a deep networking knowledge. Having like the OSI model, knowing the IPv4, IPv6, knowing ARP, DNS, DHCP, knowing the common things like out of a CCNA or even a Network Plus would really help. The other thing that's super important when it comes to becoming a pen tester with having that foundation is really Linux. So we live in Linux for the most part, either Kali Linux or the new up and coming is called Parrot OS. So between those two, having a Linux foundation and network foundations, really, really strong. With Linux as well, understanding the command line, some of the basic concepts, and understanding like bash scripting. Doesn't have to be like a coding level at all, but just understanding simple basics like for loops, while loops, just simple little instructions that you could write out in a one-liner. Yep.
Sorry.
For loops. Yep. So, just things that you could write out in like one line. Super useful. But other than that, once you build that Linux and that networking foundation, you just kind of start building upon it. So you might add in some Python scripting, or you might add in like, just some basics. There's a lot of resources and tools out there. You really just start building out your methodology. Like you start learning your tools. You might start with something like Nmap, which is network mapper, where you just scan a machine basically for open ports, and you look at those open ports and what services are running on those, and you start looking for vulnerabilities. And just over time, you repeat the process enough, you start getting better and better at it. So really, when it comes to becoming an ethical hacker, the very first steps are building that foundation. And then once you have a nice foundation to build upon, you just start learning the different ins and outs. And there's so many different aspects of pen testing and ethical hacking that really,
I want to stop you there because
yeah,
some people might get hung up on the word ethical, because we're talking about hacking, and hacking most commonly is referred to like as something nefarious, anonymous,
sure.
taking down sites. What is an ethical hacker?
Yeah, so ethical hacking means we're doing it for the good, right? So usually what that means is it does mean we have permission to do so, whether it be a client that we've signed with or our employer has signed with, and we have a lot of contracts in place that say, hey, you can attack this IP address or this range of IP addresses or this website. And that's similar, if you've heard of bug bounties before, that's similar to what they do is they just go out and these companies say, yes, you can attack us at this location or this location, and we give you permission to do so. So the other aspect of that would be what's called a black hat, which is not an ethical hacker. They hack for profit and illegal and nefarious things. So that's really the general difference.
Okay, cool. So we're basically doing the legal version of hacking, which is good. You shouldn't be a bad hacker.
Absolutely.
So that's a good foundation to have. So learning Linux, which I've started doing, which I've told everyone to start doing.
Yep.
knowing, would you say that it's essential to know networking, or can you just like come in with a server administration knowledge, or do you kind of have to start knowing like everything? Like what would be, I guess a good base certification that like a total noob, like I can turn on a computer, but I don't know what else to do. What would you say is like a good base certification they could start with?
Sure. So network related, I would say either the Network Plus or probably like the CCENT would probably be enough to really get you just those foundations to, know your protocols, know the, like, again, the OSI model, and just have that background in networking really helps, because you're going to run into things, especially when it gets to the deeper weeds of network pen testing, where if you don't understand how certain protocols work, you're going to kind of get lost. And there's a lot of different attacks based on certain protocols. So knowing what you're doing and why you're doing it really helps yourself, and it helps to explain to the customer as well when it comes time to say, here's what I attacked, why I attacked it, and how it works.
Okay, cool. That's a good foundation. So I heard the term, like this is how much of a noob I am when it comes to the hacking world. I heard the term script kiddie, and I didn't know what it was. And this was like a month ago, I'm embarrassed to say.
Sure.
And when I heard what it was, I'm like, crap, am I a script kiddie? So I am doing my most, like, I'm putting forth the most effort to not be one. So what I understand is that a script kiddie is someone who just takes like Kali Linux, doesn't know what the heck they're doing. They press start and they try to hack things. But you're not really a script kiddie if you kind of understand what you're doing, or maybe even writing your own variations of the scripts. Is that how I'm understanding it?
Yeah, so the big thing, I guess the big difference between what you call a script kiddie and maybe an ethical hacker is that the script kiddie is going to just download things and fire away. They're not going to have any inclination. They might say, oh, this port's open. I know that it's vulnerable to X, Y, and Z, so I'm just going to throw every attack at that port that I know has been vulnerable for in the past. They won't read a script. They might download something that they have no idea what it's going to do to either their machine or the machine they're attacking. So it doesn't necessarily mean that like you just download other people's stuff and you use it, because that's really what pen testing is. It's a bunch of tools and everything else that the community contributes together. It's downloading these scripts and having no idea and just firing away, and kind of spray and pray is what we call it.
Spray and pray. I like that. Okay, so we learned some Linux and we learned some networking, and I mean I guess when you become a ethical hacker, you're not just exploiting any one kind of area of IT. You might be looking at databases. You might be looking at networking, servers, Linux, all kinds of stuff, really, even social engineering. So
Sure.
Where did you focus? What was your first, like, because you were a network engineer before you saw the light. What made you want to jump into it, and where did you focus, and how did you take those first steps?
Yeah, so embarrassingly, I was working on help desk, and my friend told me that there was a certification called the Certified Ethical Hacker, and I just got excited because it's like you get paid to hack people, and that's really where I heard about this whole thing. So I started doing a lot of research and just focusing on what the next steps were, how to become this ethical hacker, and then like being the network guy and that I was, and also a lot of the training focuses primarily on network side. So network pen testing methodology, at least from a base level, is where you find in, like, I would say CEH, OSCP, eLearn Securities certifications as well. All of those really focus on it. Hack the Box, Vuln that's all mostly network based.
What is Hack the Box? I've seen that around. What is that?
So think of it as like a capture the flag. It's like a game, honestly. So you log into this site and they've got 20 live machines at any given time, and you just attempt to attack the machine. They're all vulnerable in one way or another. So you just have to hack the machine. If you get the flag when you own the machine, you go submit the flag and you get credit for it on your account. So it's just like it's a big capture the flag game, essentially, that's always running.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's a good way to learn a lot of the methodology. So that's just like the main resources that are out there are really network based. With the bug bounties and everything coming out now, those are all really web app based. So you see a lot of people dropping courses, like HackerOne starting to drop materials in their bug bounty program. Portswigger, who makes a tool called Burp Suite.
I was looking at that last night, actually, because I was looking at I forget his YouTube channel name. We were just talking about him, but yeah, Burp Suite is like this. Like, it's a premium product, but it's
Yes.
a bunch of stuff that helps you hack, kind of like Kali, but I guess more premium.
So they have a free edition. The free is really limited, but the premium edition is $400 a year. Absolutely worth it. There's like there's one tool that I could say if you're going to be doing pen testing on your own, or like your company won't pay for it for whatever reason, you have to have it if you're doing web app assessments. Just a fantastic tool. I even use it sometimes on network assessments when I'm pen testing against websites. It's amazing tool to have. So, but yeah, these foundational courses are starting to come all over the place for web app as well. But my initial way in was with network pen testing.
So you looked at the CEH first. Now, let's just get this out of the way, because I know people are wondering, what certifications should we go for? Which one should we go? That's garbage.
Sure. So as somebody who has these certifications mainly, so the CEH and the Pen Test Plus, we'll talk about them briefly. The CEH it's good on paper. It's what we call, in the US at least, it's a DoD 8570 certification, meaning that a lot of people use it, especially on the government side, on HR forms. It will not teach you the first lick about being a pen tester. There are so many other things out there for free that will teach you better. So it's honestly, as coming from somebody who has it, it's a waste of money. I paid, I can't remember, a lot of money for that certification. I did not know a thing that I was doing when I was done with it. So I would just say avoid it, honestly. And the other one that you should avoid right now is the Pen Test Plus. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, it's relatively new, and two, it doesn't have a practical assessment to it. So like the ones I'm about to talk about here in a minute have like a hack your way in kind of assessment where you actually have to hack some machines, write a report about it, and actually use hands-on examination to be successful. The Pen Test Plus,
so not just theory, right? It's like a lot
not
of people
theory.
Just go through and go, oh, I can memorize these ports and why those are vulnerable. But yeah, this makes you actually test like a hacker methodology, I guess.
And that is what the issue is with the CEH as well. It's vocabulary exam. When it's all said and done, you're memorizing switches for whatever reason. And I was just talking to somebody not that long ago, and he's like, hey, can you tell me what these different switches are for Nmap? And I'm like, you're never going to use any of those in the real world. So like they're teaching you things for this exam that you're never going to use in real life anyway. It's a memorization exam.
Yeah, because the switches, you can Google that, right? Like
dash help.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The things you need to know are how it works or why you should do that.
Right. So that's the big issues with those. The Pen Test Plus I took in beta. I was already an OSCP, had certifications, was a pen tester. They just said, hey, you want to renew all your certifications, pay $50 and take this exam for us. So I did that, and I actually thought it was a pretty decent exam. I know OSCPs that failed that exam. The issue is I don't think HR is ever going to pick it up, and it's just not going to be relevant in our field. So those are the two I would avoid. And going back on the CEH, like I have been laughed at in interviews when I was first starting out for having that from hiring managers.
Are you seriously laughed at?
Laughed at. HR doesn't know any better, but the hiring managers know better. So I mean, it just is what it is. But when it comes down, so getting into the certifications that you actually should have. So there's two that I like. We'll talk about three. So the third place would be the SANS GPen. Really good certification because it's up to date. But the issue is you're not paying for that certification out of pocket. It's like $7,000. So unless you can get a employer to pay for it, or you're in government or something where they're spending that kind of money for a certification, it's really not worth it. But if you do get lucky and you can, I mean, the jobs that have it in their postings there's quite a bit. There's like 500 or 600 last time I checked. It's a relevant certification. It's up to date. It's everything you want it to be when it comes to learning. There is no practical assessment to that, which is kind of unfortunate. But at the same time, it really does, I think, prepare you for the field and looks good on paper. The other one, so the one that you hear people talk about the most would be the OSCP.
And I had honestly never heard of that until maybe like a month ago, where I saw someone on my Twitter feed passed it. I'm like, what's the OSCP? And it sounds cool, but I have no idea what it is.
Yeah, so the cool behind the certification is that they have this, everything's try harder. That's their whole quote, is try harder. So basically what you get is you spend anywhere from $800 to $1,200, and you get 30 to 90 days of lab time essentially. And that lab time gives you access to like 50 or 60 machines, and you basically, all these machines are vulnerable, and you just sit there and you try to hack them. So, I mean, it's good practice. You get to try over and over, learn different techniques, and navigate around a network, which is awesome. The other thing to it is it has that real world exam where you have 5 machines and you actually have to take down a good majority of those machines, then write a report to pass it. So it's like a 24-hour exam where you're legitimately working at it for up to 24 hours trying to pass this exam. So in terms of like the gatekeeper for HR, the OSCP is the certification when it comes to pen testing. There are some downsides to it in that it will not teach you any methodology for web apps. It will not teach you any methodology for internal pen testing, which is big. And it won't teach you anything for wireless, which really, it's okay. It's not really, it's a network pen testing certification. But when it comes down to it, it's been dated. It hasn't been updated in 5 years-ish. And a lot of the challenges and a lot of the, even the exam type is what's called a capture the flag format. So it's not very realistic. It's not based on a network scenario. It's just based on some things that you'll never see again. So in terms of actually getting the certification, it gives you a nice mentality when it comes to try harder, perseverance, enumeration, which is big. How deep can you dig into a machine to find a vulnerability? Because that is real world. And it gives you that same, if an employer sees it on a resume, we at least know that you have that tenacity and that drive to dig deeper. But it does come with its downfalls as well. I think every certification does.
And you said this was $900?
So 800 to 1200. But the ROI on this certification is fantastic.
So what would you make? So let's say you have CCNA and you're like, okay, I want to become a pen tester. I want to become an ethical hacker. I get the OSCP. What kind of salary could I expect or hope for?
So I'll tell you, my first job was over 100. Now
okay.
And everybody I know that has the OSCP is making anywhere. I mean, I would say 80 is the base. Even I would call it really 90. I wouldn't take a job under 90 as a beginner. But I'm seeing anywhere from the 90 to 120, even as junior levels. Honestly, the market's insane right now. We don't have enough pen testers, and we just don't. There's just not enough. So supply and demand's high, money's high right now. So honestly, and that's the gatekeeper certification. Now there is one more that I want to mention, which is the eLearn Security certification. It's called the PTP. And that certification is what I think is the best, most well-rounded certification that's out there because it does teach you internal pen testing, which is huge. So internal pen testing revolves around being inside of a network, and 95% of Fortune 500s use Active Directory. So if you don't know how to pen test against Active Directory, which most certifications aren't teaching you, you're going to struggle quite a bit. So this certification is great. It does teach you that. It's actually more expensive than the offensive security. But the downfall here for them is that nobody knows who they are. The content is super relevant. There is a practical exam. There's lab environment. Everything that you want it to have, HR has not picked up on it yet. So it's almost like you need a little bit of both.
Yeah, because I know like the knowledge you gain from a certification is obviously great, but the value isn't there if no one knows what it is.
Right.
Like that was the first time I've ever heard of that. PTP, like Thomas Paul.
Yep. So professional penetration testing professional, I think is what it stands for. They have a course prior to that, which is called PTS, which is penetration testing student. And a lot of people will take that first and then go into the OSCP as kind of like a precursor. But I mean, it does, if you look at the syllabus to the material, it's got external, internal, wireless, Ruby coding. I think there's some exploit development as well, which the OSCP has some exploit development. So, but just in a well-rounded format, it's really, really impressive. But again, it's kind of like there's not the one perfect certification anymore. It's almost a blend. But if there's one that like really would help you get into interviews, it's the OSCP. If there's one that would help you be successful in interviews, it's probably the PTP.
So that's great news for us. Well, I guess maybe sad news because it is a lot. It's a heavy investment to get into that. Everyone cares about the CEH, but apparently that's
unless you're DoD 8570, you're working that kind of area in the government, then then it's fine. But otherwise, CEH isn't really worth it.
Wow. Okay. So how do you study for a test like the OSCP or the PTP? Is there a lot of I can't imagine there being a ton of training material out there, and how long can you expect to study for that kind of stuff?
So I can tell you with my experience with the OSCP, I did it in 45 days and it took me 200 hours. So that averaged out to about 5.5 hours a day. So with that, and what really with pen testing in general and any certification or job, you just need time. So as long as you have that time and that effort, they give you the materials. That's what's nice about these certification courses is like the OSCP will give you the materials, so will the PTP. They give you the lab environments to practice in. So there's a lot of that, but you have to be able to sit down and put your time in and to actually be successful.
Yeah, and that makes sense because like becoming a hacker is almost like trying to become a master of all the disciplines. Like you have to know both how to administer it and engineer it, so you can know how to break it. So like, you
Right.
have to become pretty intense. Now, the big question though, do you have to know any programming?
So yes and no. Yes, at the point of you need to know basic levels. Again, this goes back to the same thing with Bash. Like you need to know what a for loop is. You need to know what a conditional statement is. You need to know what a variable is. Like those sorts of things, so that when you see a script or you see somebody's program that's out there, you can read it and kind of understand what's going on. You don't have to be a developer to where you develop everything from scratch. Now there are companies out there that like value that kind of stuff where they like they give research time essentially to their pen testers. You might be a pen tester 75% of the time, the other 25% you're writing code, writing programs. Not all pen test shops are like that. In fact, most people I know probably aren't really, really strong dev. They're more strong scripting and just being able to, get around. The Google coders, I think, is what we like to call ourselves. So
That's funny because I always say that the best network engineers or anybody in IT are the most like they're so skilled at finding information on Google. Just a Google
that's it.
expert, knowing
That's
how to
it.
search it. Oh, it's the best skill in the world. So what would you say is what would you say makes you kind of have an aptitude towards becoming a hacker? Is it problem solving? Because you're not really solving problems, you're
Mhm.
kind of causing them. So what would you say lends to that kind of mentality?
That's a good question, and this is something I harp on a lot. Is that you have to have that mentality to always be learning, and that's really what makes a successful person. So if you enjoy learning, this is really the field for you. If you're a tinkerer, you like to break stuff, great. The issue is like hacking is a sexy term. It's a great field to be in, but I don't think a lot of the people realize the amount of work that goes into becoming an ethical hacker, and staying an ethical hacker is big too. Like we have to stay up to date because there's always a new vulnerability and there's always a new patch out there. So something that we were using yesterday might not work tomorrow. And that really keeps us on our toes. So we are always studying, always learning the next thing. And if you are somebody who enjoys this thoroughly, it doesn't feel like work. So as long as you have that inquisitive mindset, I guess, that's really what makes or breaks somebody getting into this field.
Okay, awesome. And that's I think that is probably really what anybody in IT should have. I mean, you what you're describing, you don't really need in some IT jobs. You can kind of stop, right? But
Right.
in ethical hacking, like you have to be on top of your game because things change so rapidly. That makes a lot of sense. And you kind of have to. I have to ask this question: do you know black hat hackers? Are you guys friends? Do you battle it out? I don't know. I
Yeah.
had this thought in my mind.
I think people that do it, but it's not talked about in open areas. It's not something that I don't know. Like we, especially with as much regulation as there is around Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, whatever content platform you're on, Discord, any of that discussion that's out there. I mean, it's just instant ban. So like personally, do I know people? I'm sure I know people, but do we talk about it? It really don't. And I'm guessing those that do talk about it, it's offline, it's discreet, whatever they're doing in their time.
Is it kind of like a Star Wars thing? Like you kind of go to the dark side if you like give in to hate or something. Like, what makes you become a black hat hacker? Is it just the money you think,
It's
or
the money. It's
the
the money
money?
big time. Yeah. So I mean, like, if you think about a vulnerability, if you're an exploit developer or a vulnerability researcher, you can get six figures. But you can get double, triple, quadruple that same amount for an exploit. You could sell a 0 day and like a huge program. Say you had whatever, Apple's giving $1 million out right now, right? For a 0 day, you can go take that on the black market and get triple that. So I mean, it's the same thing. Like just there's always going to be more money for being bad guy than good guy.
Interesting, interesting. So, guys, if you're watching this, which you are watching this right now, do not do that. The money's not worth it. You'll get caught. You'll go to jail. Don't become a
Absolutely.
black hat hacker.
Absolutely.
So, I had a question, and it's coming back to me now. So, for let's just say our the person we're talking to is Bob. He's 16 years old. What steps should he take right now to become a hacker? Should he start playing with Kali? Should he start playing with Linux? Or should he start maybe with earlier baby steps? Should he get a Network Plus certification? What would you say if you could go back and do it all over again?
Sure. So at 16, I don't know what certifications are really open to you. So like even like the OSCP, you have to be 18 to take. I don't know how
real?
CompTIA is. Yeah.
Wow.
So
yeah, CompTIA, you can, I think, everything you can pretty much get. So we know some guys who are 16 who have their CCNP, and they have all the CompTIA certifications. Talking to you, Michael, if you're watching. But yeah, so I didn't know that. Like CCIE, yeah, it's 18, and so OSCP, interesting.
yeah. So I mean, okay. So other than that, keeping that out, then I would honestly recommend, starting with Kali Linux and learning Linux is absolutely fine. You can learn in whichever order you want. You can even learn concurrently. Like if you're doing, say you download Kali and you start following along with a Linux course, that's fine. You start doing Hack the Box and just practicing, that's fine as well. And maybe you come across some networking things and you have no idea what's going on, then you start supplementing that. And you just start building these foundational blocks as you go. I think if at like, say you're 16 years old, you got plenty of time 2 years is plenty of time to get ready for the job force. And even like, I mean, if you get the right certifications and the right everything else, I don't even know if you need college at that point. So.
Oh, now you're speaking my love language. That was my
I know.
live stream last week. Yeah.
I saw.
So I guess, okay, do you have a degree?
I have a master's degree.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, man. Am I an advocate? I don't know. Like it's tough because like there are certain situations that I've been in that the degree has absolutely helped me. And I think that's leveraged in my career to other opportunities. Like I worked at a national lab. You had to have a master's degree. That national lab on my resume has helped me get into pen testing jobs. I think the master's degree has helped me as well. Do I think and do I know people that have done it without a degree, without anything? Absolutely. Do you need a degree to be in this field? No, probably not. And you got to think that my degree coming from the background, I was an accountant, so I needed a degree, needed a master's degree as well. So that was primarily the reason that I had it. But so if you're saying, hey, I want to be an accountant, yes, you need a degree. Hey, I want to be a pen tester, you don't probably need a degree for anything, if I'm being honest.
Okay, perfect. Well, I like that. So your degree really isn't in IT at all.
Master's is MBA with a focus on computer information systems, so it's a little bit, but I mean, realistically, no, it's all accounting and business related.
Okay, cool. So going back to our good old friend Bob, he's 16.
Yep.
You would say start playing with Linux, start playing with Kali, get your feet wet.
Yep.
Maybe consider not going to college. Once you hit 18, hit those big certifications, OSCP, PTP, and go from there. Now, what kind of job title do you look for as a hacker? Is it just called penetration testers? Is it called ethical hacker? What do you look for?
Yeah, so LinkedIn and Indeed are really good at just searching. Either search by the certification, like searching by OSCP is probably going to get you a nice range because you can be called junior, senior penetration tester. You could be called ethical hacker. You could be called red teamer. You could be called senior security engineer. I've seen everything out there. So it's almost better to search by the certifications to kind of find those jobs that really narrow it down than basing it off one keyword. The other thing is Ninja Jobs is another one. So if you do, I think it's ninjajobs.org. The nice thing about it is it's all cybersecurity related jobs, and it has like nice features where you can like switch out. And like one feature that I really love is remote because I only work from home. So you could filter for remote only jobs. And you can filter by salary, and they're all like, again, cybersecurity related. So you could search like OSCP remote with this minimum salary and find what jobs are out there. And normally you're actually submitting your resume to like a hiring manager as opposed to HR doing all that filter, crap that you got to go through as well. So it's a really nice platform that I don't think a lot of people know about.
Wait, so hold up. You're saying that you could work from home as an ethical hacker pretty easily?
Yes.
Huh.
So There's pushback at the junior level, but if you're patient and you find the right job, my first job was from home. I mean, so you just have to be patient with it and find the right job for it. But yeah, every ethical hacker that I know that is worked at least a couple of years is working from home at this point. Only there's some jobs that make you travel and go in the office, but I would avoid those at this rate. This just the trend we're moving towards is working from home in this field.
Now, I just comes to mind like, do you have a hard time doing a proper penetration test when you're working from home, or is that kind of the idea? Like, because hackers are most of the time going to be remote, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. So most of the time we are going to be remote. There are some downsides to it. So I think the biggest downfall, especially if you come in as a junior, as a remote, you miss that opportunity to, shoulder surf, somebody. You get the opportunity to watch a more senior person do a pen test or ask somebody questions. Like, yeah, you still have that Slack environment or whatever environment you use, and you can talk to people and say, hey, I'm doing this. Can we screen share? I think it loses the same feel, though, that you can just sit there and watch and learn from somebody that is more senior and has some tips and tricks to show you. Other than that, I think as you go and you get more advanced, it really working from home is awesome. Like you are simulating, and when you're doing an external assessment, you're simulating, an external attacker. I could be in a foreign country; it doesn't really matter. The internal assessment assumes either breach, Dropbox, insider threat. Somehow we've gotten a laptop on that network. And again, we don't have to be there for it to actually work for us. So the only time we typically go on site is if the customer really, really wants it. And that would just be for an internal. Or wireless is kind of 50-50 nowadays where, it's good to go on site to do the wireless, but at the same time, you could ship a Dropbox and do the wireless as well.
Okay, cool. And that makes sense. And that's fantastic. I'm a huge advocate for working from home. And I get so many guys and girls coming into the network engineer field. And they're like, I want to work from home. And I'm like, yeah, it's possible, but it's kind of hard. It really is hard. So it's
Sure.
good to know that becoming a hacker, you can work from home, which is the best situation I've ever had in my life. And I know
Yeah, absolutely.
it's the best.
You roll to bed 1 minute before you got to work and you're good. Make your coffee and you're ready.
Oh my goodness, yeah. You have
That's it.
so much, like I hated commuting so, like I had an hour each way. I almost lost my mind. It's a good thing I found a job remote quick. Now, I hear this a lot, and it's hard to find a good answer, and I know you can answer it well. Cybersecurity versus just security, like it's a buzzword, and what does it really mean? So why would, because you see like they have the CCNA cybersecurity, they still have that, but then they have the CCNP security, the new one coming out. What's the big difference between cybersecurity and security? Are they not just the same? Is it a different variation?
I think they're the same thing. If you were to ask me that, you asked me that in an interview, I would tell you they're the exact same thing. The only time that we see a difference in like security in our aspect is if we're talking physical versus cyber. And physical being like, can I pick your locks? Can I bypass with social engineering? That sort of methodology. Other than that, cybersecurity and security are the same thing to me when it comes to at least IT.
That I would agree with that, and it's funny because for a while there, and it still is the case, we have the CCNA security, then we have CCNA cybersecurity, and I'm like, what's the difference?
Right, right,
Why did you guys do that?
right. It's buzzwords. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I hate to say it, but they were probably trying to sell certifications.
Yep.
People try to do that. Now, so being a hacker, I mean, you basically have to know security in and out, because you're not just hacking security. You have to know how to secure things, because when you do your penetration testing, you have to give these people you're hacking saying, hey, this is what you do to fix that. So would you say that going for maybe like a CCNP security certification would be good, or do you think what you're doing is enough to get the OSCP, and is it even better than going for like CCNP security?
So I always caveat anything above like a CCNA level. And I just do that for our field only because I know people that have had that NP or that DP, and they have been roped into other projects or Cisco stuff, or they're doing like console security audits and things that, like, hey, I became a pen tester. Why do I want to look at Cisco logs or Cisco, configs all day? So like you can pigeonhole yourself in those situations. I think like if you want to understand the defensive side, either being on the offense and just doing it over and over, which is kind of what I've done, really helps. Or you could start out as like a blue team slash defender and learn the attacks from that side. And then you kind of know, you just know the opposite. But like a lot of it really boils down to research, right? So you know the attacks that you're performing. You have to understand yourself why those attacks are vulnerable and how you can fix them. And then you relay that to the client. So it's a lot of study time outside, not just on the attacking side, but also the defense and remediation.
Now, real quick, this is another noob question that I just am way too lazy to Google. Red team, blue team, purple team. What is this?
Sure. So as general terms, a red team would be offensive security. So that would be your attacker, pen tester. I'll get into what it really means in our field in a second. On the blue team, it just means defender, so red versus blue. And then purple is a combination of both. So when we do a purple team assessment, what that means is I will sit down with a blue teamer and I will run an attack. And I'll say, hey, did you see it? And either yes, I saw it, or no, I didn't. How can we change that baseline on Splunk or whatever it is, the SIM that we're using, and improve that security? So purple teams when a red and blue work together for a better overall cause. So just to backtrack a little bit, red team in our field. So there's pen testing and then there's red teaming. Pen testing is what I do primarily. Red teaming is like a advanced pen testing, essentially. What you're doing is you might be given a mission. You might say, hey, we want you to get this sensitive R&D off this network. That's it, go. And those guys might go, or girls might go out and they might go to the job site. They might sit by you at lunch. They might try to take a picture of your badge or clone your badge. They might social engineering is probably the primary way in. You're not scanning the network and looking. You're not making a bunch of noise. Your goal as a red teamer is to be as quiet as possible. So these assessments are a lot longer. They could go 6 months. They could go a year. And your ultimate goal is to be quiet, stealthy, and simulate what is called an APT, or an advanced persistent threat. Basically, you're China, Russia, whoever, like a really well-organized, well-funded hacking organization. So that's really what a red team is. But as a generalization, that's red, blue, and purple.
Okay, so because I've only heard the term when talking about capture the flag. Red teaming, blue teaming. So this is actually a term you'll use out in the field, saying, okay, we're going to hire you for a red team service. Is that what the PO would say?
Absolutely. Yeah, you see different titles for it. So it could be penetration testing, it could be red teaming. It's very general loop together, and you'll see jobs that title it red teaming and it's really penetration testing. You see jobs that are penetration testing and there's really red teaming involved as well. So they are interchangeable from like a high level. And yeah, so I mean, if you see that, you can assume that it's pen testing, or at least some sort of hacking going on, offensive security going on.
Gotcha. Okay. So I know that doing capture the flags is a good way to learn pen testing, learn ethical hacking. What are some of the best sites you know of that'll really help develop those skills, maybe for like a beginner all the way to super advanced?
Sure. So in terms of capture the flag, I think Hack the Box is probably the best place for beginners. Now you have to hack your way into this site. That's Googleable. Google is your best friend as a hacker, so learn to use it. Other than that, like honestly, the VIP membership there is like $13 a month. And the thing about the VIP membership is it gives you access to all the retired machines. So if you're a complete noob, you could go to the retired machine, spin it up, and then practice on it. And if you can't figure it out, the nice thing about retired machines is there's videos out there on it or write-ups on it, and you can learn from where you're stuck. The current Hack the Box, what you have to do is you work against live machines until they're retired. Once they're retired, then write-ups come out. So for that extra $13 a month, kind of really worth it. But otherwise, if you just want to practice and give it a go, it's completely free. Another one is VulnHub. VulnHub, basically, you just download the different vulnerable machines, and then you try to hack against them. The nice thing is that most of those already have write-ups out there, and they're all free. The downside would be that it could be system intensive because you already have to run a Kali VM most likely, and then you're going to have to run another VM on top of that. So if you don't have a lot of RAM or system space, it could be an issue for you. The other one that I have not tried but I've been hearing good things about is Virtual Hacking Labs. So apparently they've got a nice course structure and labs that actually kind of walk you through some of the stuff. So I've been hearing good things. I think they're a little bit more expensive than Hack the Box is, and I don't believe they're free. I believe they're a paid version. So between those three, really, really good places to start. When you talk about on the advanced side, there are places that you can pay for labs, like somewhere like Pentester Academy is a place that has what's called, one of the courses is advanced, or is a Active Directory attack and defense. So when you're talking about those attacks and learning how to defend against them, perfect course. It's not a lot for the videos, but if you want the lab environment, I think it's 100 or $200, and you get to practice those actual Active Directory attacks in a simulated lab environment that's way more realistic than it is capture the flag. And backtracking a little bit, Hack the Box actually has a couple pro labs as well. One is called Offshore. The other is called Rasta Labs. Both of those are $100 a month, and they simulate Active Directory environments as well. So there's a ton of places out there that in between free to anywhere to even like $300, which really isn't that bad when you consider like the ROI on everything, for practicing and doing that. You can also build your own out. That's something that I've done before too. You got to have some system resources, but if there's courses out there that you can build it out and, simulate a lot of the Active Directory attacks as well.
Wow. Okay. So first of all, you're getting me super excited because I want to try every one of these things.
Yeah.
It sounds so fun. What I love about this is that the learning process is so hands-on.
Yes.
It's amazing. And there's more resources than I thought there was out there. That's kind of crazy. Now, I want you to go into a little bit more. How do you build out your own environment for like a hacking lab? What's a hacking lab look like? What does yours look like?
Yeah, so mine is fairly simple, but it is system intensive. So I have a Kali VM running, and then I have basically 3 machines. Now I've spun this up in Azure in a very similar way as well. So if you don't want to use system resources, you can use Azure. Yeah, Azure. So you can utilize Azure, or I use VMware. But basically, you have trial versions of Windows out there that you can download. They never check the expiration, really. They just say, hey, you've expired, bad guy. But other than that, it's just you download a Windows Server 2012, 2016, even 2019. You install that, and then you've got a couple of Windows 10 machines that you put with it. You make a domain, and then you just join the machines to the domain, and you practice vulnerabilities. Now, if you don't know how to build out a domain, there's videos on that or instructions on that. And you really just simulate an Active Directory network. You read write-ups in why things are vulnerable, and then you simulate that in your own environment. It's definitely a lot of work because you're building out your own stuff. You're utilizing your own resources, but it's also the best way to learn because you're building out your own stuff. So, if you know how to build it, break it, and fix it, it really helps.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah, because you can't know how to hack it and unless you know how to build it. And you can't tell people how to defend themselves unless you know how to secure it. So I find it interesting. I'm going to poke fun at Microsoft that you talk a lot about hacking Active Directory and internal networks. Is that because like you don't encounter a lot of networks that are like Linux based that are super insecure, or maybe just the admins who know Linux know what they're doing more so? I'm just saying that out loud. So why is it that you're encountering so many Windows based environments and you're penetration testing those?
Yeah, so kind of like I talked about earlier, 95% of the Fortune 500 utilize Active Directory. So it's just really a numbers game. And in terms of my pen testing experience, 100% of the time, it's been an Active Directory environment. So when I teach and I make videos and I spin up stuff, I spin it up based on everything that I've seen and focus on that and making it as realistic as possible. So, I mean, every environment nowadays, I still, like I said, haven't encountered one that's running on Linux and not Active Directory.
Interesting. And that's obvious. It's so many people are running Windows. Now, people are moving to the cloud.
Yes.
How is that looking for you? Is the cloud super secure? Are you encountering vulnerabilities? Are you called upon to test the cloud at all?
So we do test against the cloud. We treat it just like a normal pen test. I would say that there is a bit more security on there, but it doesn't mean that it's completely secure. We do cloud console assessments as well, and you find IAM is probably the weakest spot out of anything. So when you're doing these assessments, you really just it's better for us to also see the inside, just in case, okay, the pen test didn't pick anything up, but we got to look at your inside and make sure that you're not disclosing anything or you have improper items set up on your cloud security. But yes, everything is moving to the cloud. It's a bit more secure, but it's still, it's not, you're no better off at this point. You still have to, people are the weakest points, and people will keep being the weakest points.
Interesting. And when you say IAM, you're talking about the identity access management. So their Active
Yep.
Directory, the way they're securing their servers, are they using just a local admin password or
Yep.
things like that? And that's true because people are still connecting their on-prem Active Directory environments to the cloud. They're still peering those things, and the weaknesses could still exist on-prem. It
Yep,
doesn't just fix
exactly.
it because they connect to the cloud. It just propagates to the cloud.
We see a lot of cloud domain controllers, and then we have, everything else. The systems are all on-prem, so it really doesn't change a lot. Now, when you pen test against an entire environment that's in the cloud, that becomes a little bit more difficult. But you're still not seeing a ton of that at this point.
So, and I imagine you probably encounter this because you mentioned a lot about how all the modern certs you're looking at really don't teach on web app testing. And I've seen on your channel, you talk about that a lot.
Yes.
And you probably do that a lot. Do you see a lot of web apps in the cloud? And second question, you answer after that. What's involved in web app testing or penetration testing, and why is it so popular? Is it just because more people have these web applications?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So towards the end of my time with my last job, when I was working, as a senior pen, everything was moving towards web app. And even if there was a client that we had a network assessment for, chances are they've only got one network, or if they're larger, they've got a couple networks. The rare few have a lot of networks to pen test, but the chances are the client that has one network might have multiple web apps. So you're looking at multiple assessments, and then the opportunities are just more. And you add that in with the whole bug bounty craze that's going on, when everybody's like, after you can just hack a website, get paid to do it. Everybody's starting to learn these web app pen testing techniques. Now the good places to learn, there is eLearn Security has a web app penetration testing course. I think it's great. Good foundations. There's a lot of resources out there. Again, like the HackerOne is coming out with a lot of material. PortSwigger is another one that's coming out with material. So there's a lot of good free resources. On top of that, if you want to learn the methodology, you could spin up your own website or just practice on one of the bug bounty websites. They're not going to be really easy to break, obviously, because they've been pen tested for God knows how long. But you can take something like, there's something out there called an OWASP checklist, OWASP. Now version 4, I don't know if they've updated version 5. I don't know if version 5 has the full checklist in PDF, but version 4 has an Excel document and a PDF that goes with it. Literally line by line, you can go and it says what the attack is, what you're looking for, what tools to run, and how to do it. So it gives you step by step, and there's 128 checkboxes. So I use that still to this day on every pen test that I do to make sure, because there's such a deep methodology when it comes to web applications, that I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So I utilize that checklist at every time. So in terms of like learning the methodologies, OWASP is a great resource as well. They're all web app focused.
Interesting. Okay. So that would be probably a good area to get into, especially if you're looking for more money, because more and more companies have web apps they want to have tested.
Sure.
Because like you don't need a full infrastructure to have a web app. You can spin up a web app anywhere. You can be a small company, big company.
Right. Yep. And so I mean that's really where the game is going to the cloud. It's going to the web apps. So I mean, this is kind of like that evolving. You want to stay on top of your game, always be learning. Web apps are kind of where the industry is shifting. At least if you want to be lucrative for you. If you're doing bug bounties, there's money there. If you're owning your own company, there's money there. If you want to do assessments, a lot of the work from home, like 100%, I never have to travel to a client site, is a web app, because it's online. It's a web app.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So honestly, like that's really where the industry is shifting. But that's not to say there's not a need for the network side. It's just the more well-rounded you are overall, the better off you're going to be when it comes time to interview and find jobs.
Of course. Now, I want to talk about the bug bounty thing. So, like, this is a fairly new topic for me. So there are companies out there who are paying people to come find bugs in their systems, and they're paying large sums of money. Am I correct?
Yeah, they can. Absolutely.
So have you ever done one before?
I've done several. Yeah. And I don't For me, it's never been lucrative. There are people out there that are going to be smarter, better, faster at finding these bugs. You see a lot of the people posting like, I don't know, 20 grand at a time, or you'll see somebody make like 100 grand in a day, and it's absolutely insane. It's just not hyper realistic for somebody like me. But I like to go in there and I like to practice and play around with them. I think it's really good for if you're just starting out with pen testing or with web apps. It's a great place to learn the methodologies and to practice a lot of the attacks. Even if they don't work, you kind of understand what you're trying to do. So I think that's great. For me, my billable rate, it's a lot more consistent and steady than it would be for me to go look for 40 hours for a bug and maybe find something, maybe not.
Oh yeah, that would suck to spend like
Yeah.
40 hours bashing at a bug. I don't know what the term is. Trying to find a bug and you just nothing. The other guy wins. Oh, that'd be the worst thing ever. Oh my goodness.
Right. And I mean, like you take a pen tester salary, especially like a senior salary, and you compare that to a bug bounty hunter. I would guess probably top 1% of the bug bounty hunters make that as it is. So you would really need to be in an elite class, not try to discourage anybody, just like keeping it realistic. Or if you live in a country that the money's better, where even if you get some of these small bugs and you chip away, that money might be fantastic depending on where you live. But just like in the U.S., it's not really worth the time invested. The payoff's not as great, at least for me.
Now, I want to address this, and I know you probably talked about this before on your channel, but I know a lot of people want to become hackers just because they see it in movies and it looks really cool,
Sure.
or they see it in a TV show. Is it reality like that? Like sitting at a screen, typing away, and you're just like, oh, I'm in the system. Oh, I've passed the mainframe. Like, is it like that?
No, it's not. That's mostly theatrics. It's a lot of sitting at a computer. It's a lot of typing at a screen, but typically you're not seeing like numbers fly across the screen and you're typing really fast and you're like in a race against time to before something. There's like some status bar before some guy's coming into the room and you gotta like hurry up. But
Where'd that status bar come from?
you're right, exactly. So. It's a lot of really, honestly, it's kind of the opposite. You're on a timed assessment, but if there's anything about hacking, it takes patience. And like enumeration is the biggest thing when it comes to hacking. And enumerating meaning digging deeper, trying to find all the information that you can. Because the more information that you can gather as an attacker, the better off you are when attacking that client. So the deeper you dig, the more information you gather. That's really what it's about. So you don't spend as much time exploiting as you probably do, gathering that information. Because once you find the exploit, it's pretty quick usually. Just outside the box thinking too is another thing to add. So it's really much more slow than it is theatrics.
And that makes sense. And it's kind of good to hear that, because people, I used to think like, oh, I could never be a hacker because I'm not a genius. I can't just. I'm not good at math. I don't know programming. I can't be like
Right.
that. But it's like any other discipline in IT. You have to learn the methodology. You have to learn how it works, and then practice, lab it
Right.
up. You have to have patience. You have to have tenacity. You have to keep going and going, and that's good because I know some people don't have that, and that's fine. But anybody can do this, which is pretty cool. It's
Yeah.
encouraging.
So, I mean, honestly, like I'm very average when it comes to being a pen tester. There are people that are ridiculous. Their brain works on a whole nother level, and I'm incredibly successful. Like it's about the drive, the desire, the passion for it, right? And that constant will to learn. You just got to be the best you that you can be, more so than trying to catch Bob at the top, who's on CNN every night or whatever, for being a god hacker. You don't need to be that. You just need to be the best you could be. You could still be incredibly successful in this field.
That's super cool to hear. So I'm convinced. So here I am. I'm a network guy. And I've already heard some tips, but I want to hear you tell me what to do.
Sure.
What certification should I go for next to make my way into the hacking realm?
So based on your network experience, I'd say you're pretty good. You might have some coding background, or at least understand. You might have done some Ansible in your life or something on there where you got that background. You might have experienced a little bit of Linux. Could probably pick it up pretty quick, especially if you've already done coding or anything like that. You've lived in a command line, so you've got some experience there.
It's like my dating profile.
Yeah. Honestly, though, like at your point with your experience, I would honestly just tell you to, either jump into something like Hack the Box, get your feet wet, make sure you really like it. If you do really like it, I don't think you're far off from just purchasing the OSCP and diving in, given that you have the time. As long as you have the time to do that and practice on those labs, I think, with the network Linux foundation, again, it doesn't have to be incredibly strong, and they'll teach you a lot of what you need to know. But that drive, that desire, and just that basic foundation will take you far. I mean, it'll get you. That would be the next step for you.
Oh,
honestly.
okay. All right.
So,
Oh, I appreciate your confidence in me.
I got
try
confidence.
not to let you down. Now, what would you compare the OSCP to like other high-level certs? Would it be comparable to the CCIE, or would it be like a high-level CCNP? What would you say it is?
It's really, really tough.
Because we know people, they spend years studying for the CCIE and failing multiple times. So I'm not sure if it's up to that par, or maybe it is. I don't know.
So you hear people failing multiple times and that it's really, really hard. I don't think it's anywhere near the CCIE level. But at the same time, like, there are very few certifications out there that have that low of an investment for that return of investment. Like, to spend $1,200 and make potentially $100,000. I don't know what certifications out there that's even comparable to.
That in and of itself is enough said. That's perfect. Yeah, man. Whew. Well, Heath, we're at about an hour here, and I know we got questions coming in, but I want to make them do. I'm going to make them go subscribe to your channel. So guys, link below, the Cyber Mentor. He's got a great YouTube channel. I've watched a bunch of his videos. Fantastic. He does all kinds of fun stuff like I do. And if you like me, you'll enjoy watching his stuff. Maybe even more so. Just make sure you stay subscribed to me. Go subscribe, and I'm sure if you comment on his videos, he'll be more than happy to answer. Sorry to put you on the hook for that, but you're going to do
Absolutely.
it now.
I got you. I try to respond to every comment. So
Good, man.
Yeah.
And then he's got this, he does a ton of pen testing courses. So I got a link below. It's the first link in the description. He does pen testing for beginners. And it's like, how long is it? Like 14 hours?
Yeah, about 14 and a half hours.
So if you got 14 hours to spare on a weekend, there you go. You know what you're doing.
And it takes you through that 80 lab build. So if you want to see how you build and break a lab, there you go. It's got what you need there.
That's so cool. And it's free. Like you just did it for free. And you're getting people started, which is so cool. So yeah, go follow this guy, find him on Instagram, Twitter. Anywhere else they can find you, or is that good?
That's good. Twitch. You just Google the Cyber Mentor if you need to find me, but Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram.
Oh yeah, I forgot you're on Twitch. Yeah,
that's all the social medias.
Well, I think we should do more stuff together because people like this. But anyways, guys, again, any more questions for him? Go subscribe, and he'll answer your questions. And Heath, dude, thanks so much for coming on. You answered a lot of my questions, encouraged me, and I hope other people have been encouraged from this. I know they were. So anyway, dude, catch you next time.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.